Okay. So here, talking about the smooth muscles, we know that we're going to find them in most of your hollow organs, right? So what does that mean? Well, you look at the respiratory system, digestive, urinary, reproductive, circulatory system, meaning your arteries. Okay, so we are going to find these smooth muscles there. And then you say, well, but the heart is a hollow organ. Yeah, but you're not going to find smooth muscles in your heart. You're going to find cardiac muscle there. Okay. Okay. Now, these smooth muscles, they are also organized into sheets, but they are going to be completely different from the organization that you had in your skeletal muscle. So these slides I took from this video that I found to be very helpful, especially on this mnemonics on how we're going to remember where to find the smooth muscles. Okay, so location of smooth muscles, you're going to think stove. So S is for the skin. So you do have an involuntary smooth muscle on the skin. That is your erector pili. T is for tracts in reproductive, respiratory, and urinary system. O is for hollow organs. Okay, so here you're going to have your intestines, bladder, uterus, and stomach. And remember also, yeah, you have your respiratory, well, it's right there, respiratory tract, okay. V is for vessels, right, mainly your arteries. They're going to constrict. And E is for the eyes. So you have contraction of the iris, also dilation of the iris. That has to do with smooth muscle function. And movement of the lens. Okay, so here the lens on the eye. So that has to do with your smooth muscle contraction. Okay, so shape of a smooth muscle fiber. That is going to be very much different than your skeletal muscle. This one, the shape of this thing you call a fusiform. So you can compare this to a football shape. Okay, and of course this has to be American football. Okay. So it's kind of a spindle shape. Also keep in mind that your smooth muscle is going to have one nucleus in it, okay? So you're not going to have the multinucleated or two nuclei. You're going to have only one nucleus at the center of that smooth muscle cell. So here, oh, it has only one nucleus. And you're going to find something interesting here. There are those intermediate filaments. And those intermediate filaments are going to make a network around that muscle. Okay. Now, when you look around this smooth muscle, you're going to find that it also has some connective tissue around it, but it only has this endomysium. Remember, this is going to surround each individual muscle fiber. So that's the only one, the only connective tissue that you're going to have here. You're not going to have the other two layers that you find in your skeletal muscles. Okay, so you have here only the endomysium. Okay. And now when you look at the arrangement of these muscles, you're going to see here, looking for example at most of your hollow organs, right? You see that these smooth muscles, they come into layers. And those layers, they're going to be like superimposed in a way that they're going to contract in different directions, okay? So first, you're going to find this longitudinal layer, which is out here. If you look here at, what is this? This is a part of your intestine, okay? So if you look at this longitudinal layer, the length of the fiber of this muscle fiber is going to be along the axis of your tube. Okay, so those are parallel to the long axis, so that's the arrangement for your longitudinal one. So when you contract these smooth muscles, you see that they're going to cause this tube to shrink. Okay, so it's going to shorten the length of that tube when these longitudinal muscles contract. And then you look at another layer, then you have here this circular layer. So this will go at a 90 degrees angle, the stretch of the fiber, okay, is going to be at a 90 degrees angle from the major axis of your tube here. So when this circular layer contracts, you are going to squeeze this tube. Okay, you're going to make it smaller. Okay. Now, when you coordinate the contraction of your longitudinal layer and your circular layer, you end up pushing stuff that is inside of that hollow organ. So mixing and squeezing here is going to lead to peristalsis. Okay, so this has to be, of course, coordinated because peristalsis has to follow or has to push the mass inside the hollow organ, inside of your intestines. It has to push in a certain direction. Okay, so peristalsis here, it's something that you should know. Okay. So again, looking at this overall structure of the smooth muscle, you have that football shape, you have one nucleus, you have this cool intermediate filaments that make this little net, right? Now, at every point where intermediate filaments cross, you're going to find this little structure that is called dense body. Okay, so every time you see crossing of intermediate filaments, you find your dense bodies. Okay, and those dense bodies would be analogous to your Z line if you look at a sarcomere. Okay, so those dense bodies here are going to serve as anchors for your sliding filaments to contract that muscle. Okay. And then again, you're going to find here your thick filaments that are myosin. You're going to find your thin filaments that are actin. So that's something that is similar. Okay. But now something that is really important for your smooth muscle is that you're going to find a lot of gap junctions. Okay. And you're going to know the function of those gap junctions. Okay. So this is a big difference between your smooth and your voluntary skeletal muscle. Okay. So again, this is a formation of your dense bodies, and this is like analogous to the Z disc, right? And those are your gap junctions, okay? So now let's see here. The gap junctions are very important for transmitting electrical signals for contraction, okay? So when some wave of electricity comes from another muscle here, it is spread through this fiber and goes through another gap junction to hit the fiber that is close to it. Okay? Okay.